dis-ease, because we have interference, because we have subluxation, because we have physical, mental, emotional, and chemical stresses. So, the standard American, under the medical model, shows up sick. He's ill. Why is he sick? He's sick because he had interference. But medically, what they do is they start at the top. They want to give this person a diagnosis. He shows up with some symptoms. And so they want to name that condition. They're very smart people, and they want to help. But what they're doing is they want to name that condition. Okay, we're going to call it restless leg syndrome. Let's say something like that. Or let's call it, what else do I want to call it? Let's call it, well, it's just any symptom. How about the boy that just showed up that went to Iowa City to talk to a neurologist today, and they called it chronic cyclical migraines? It's because he has symptoms of, he's puking all the time, the kid's missed so much school, he just feels terrible, he's 11 years old. Symptoms, effects, they want to treat the diagnosis. So what she says, the neurologist, was, okay, yes, we're going to call him chronic cyclical migraines, and she treats him with this medication, and then also talks to him, thank God, about, hey, get him drinking water, more water, and getting some rest, and those are good choices in my mind, but the medication is not. But this is where she stops. There is symptoms and their effects because there was malfunction, or dis-ease, dis-ease first, and there's dis-ease and malfunction because of interference. Interference of the nervous system from the above, down, inside, out, communication of the master control system that was the very first organ to develop in our body. We get interference of the nervous system because of subluxation. I've talked to you guys about subluxation. We get subluxation because of physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, and chemical stress. Who's got stresses like that in their life? Everyone. I can't get rid of your stresses, and you're not going to be able to get rid of mine. But you can, if you've ever figured out how to do that, you let me know. And so we're always going to have these stresses on our body. That's always going to cause a subluxation because those are the things that create a different energy within our body and then create this subluxation. It's easy to understand the physical stuff. I slipped, I fell, I had an accident. But it's harder to think about these things. But I see more people in here for the effects of these stresses than I do for that one right there, I promise you. And by removing subluxation, we restore function. No more malfunction. We restore ease within the body. If we have ease in the body or function within the body, then we have no symptoms or effects to talk about and need no diagnosis. So that sick person would have never showed up sick in the first place if the body was working 100%. Brain cell talking to tissue cell. Every one of these 100 trillion cells is constantly sending messages to the brain asking for instructions. And remarkably, the brain receives and answers each one simultaneously. It's amazing how many functions are happening in the body. That's awesomeness. All those cells work in complete harmony with one another, with the brain at the helm. It controls everything in our body. These trillions of messages are set up back 24 hours a day, back and forth, ceaselessly coordinating and directing the countless functions of the body with absolute precision. And if need be, will continue to do so for 100 years and more. So at the beginning I told you to have health we need to have 100%, Webster's Dictionary says 100% of the body function 100% of the time. So we have those 100 trillion cells, and those 100 trillion cells live for a certain amount of time. Guess what is the only cell in our body that never dies and is never replaced? The nervous system. The nervous system cells never ever die, and they're never replaced, unless they're damaged or cut. So our bodies are designed to live 100 to 120 years, is what the physiologists, when I study blue zones and centurions and things like that, 100 to 120 years. The nervous system is the very first organ to develop in our body, the brain and the spinal cord. And it'll be this very same brain and spinal cord that we have for the eternity of this body to live to 100 or 120 years. Every other one of the cells in your body is going to be die, and be replaced. That's amazing. So what's the most important organ in our body to take care of? The brain and spinal cord. Because everything is an extension of that brain and spinal cord, and it's going to make every one of those things function. So if it at all has any interference, creating malfunction or disease, dis-ease, then that's where we're going to have a sick body. That medically we're going to treat with all kinds of different, number one diet, let's name it. She has this. Oh, I must send you this other guy because I don't know what's going on yet. I don't know what to name this. I don't know for sure what this is called. I'll send you this specialist. I'm going to send you this specialist because this guy might be able to diagnose you better. to name. He's a better namer than the last guy was. That's all he is. And so then once he has his diagnosis, then they can look in a book of treatment and treat, but what are they treating? The effects or the cause? 100 years. So then when we talk about the function of the nervous system, feeling versus function, when we have this peripheral nervous system, the system that comes off of our spinal cord, only 9% of the fibers that come out of the nerve are sensory. 9%. That's posture, pain, hot and cold. If you touch a stove and you got to get your hand off of it fast, 9%. Pain in my low back, pain in my neck. You think chiropractors just deal with pain in low back and neck? No, it's much more than this. Posture, sensory of the posture. How am I balanced? You know, am I slipping and falling? 9% of that thing. The rest of the nervous system, what's it doing? Motor nerves, controls the muscles, weakness, spasms, fatigue, tightness. The autonomic nervous system controls blood vessels, organs and glands, sinuses, allergies, low energy, digestive problems, breathing problems. That's how the chiropractor can get pressure off a nervous system to restore function, get rid of dis-ease, so the body has ability to function 100%. 9%. Feeling good does not equal good health. Good health equals healthy function. Nerve tension can exist without pain. We can have a subluxation without feeling it. Only 9% of the nerve carries pain back and forth from the brain. What causes subluxations? We talked about that. Physical stress, mental stress, emotional stress, chemical stresses. So who can have subluxations? Everyone, regardless of age. It doesn't matter. Children, great-great-grandmas, athletes, non-athletes. It doesn't matter. Everybody. And so, as we go through this series of Dinner with the Docs, do you understand why I have to start with this first? It's not fair to me to come in and talk about vitamin D or omega-3 fatty acids or exercise unless I cover the foundation of health. A lot of you guys already know about chiropractic, but it's got to be in your core that this is absolutely first, and never doubt the body. The power is within. It is in there, above, down, and inside out. You have to have 100% expression before you can talk about wellness. Have to. 1 minute old until death. B.J. Palmer. Regardless of nationality, race, color, religion, yesterday, today, and tomorrow, innate has been, is, and will continue to be the indefatigable and unalterable factor of every living being. Not sometimes, but always. Following the concepts of its rules and regulations. Following from above, down, inside out. You cannot change the law. What's the very first organ to develop in an embryo? In nature's all of her wisdom, just amazing, the brain and the spinal cord. It does not change. So then, okay, baby Piper was born. And then now does she continue to grow? Is she going to grow into someday 5'4", 5'5", and 120 pounds or whatever? How does her body know when to stop growing? I mean, her hands grow to a certain size, right? Her hands are going to be different than my hands and your hands. How does the body know when to stop growing the legs? How does the body know that that the heart cells are all going to grow to make the heart the right size? How are the liver cells going to stay where the liver's supposed to be and they don't end up in the ear? It's all a controlled system that continues to work if it's uninterfered with. Who are you listening to? The medical profession and big pharma? It's advertising. They spend billions a year on advertising to us on the TV and in the magazines and in the newspapers and on the radio of where health comes from. Billions. And it's hard not to ignore it. It's hard, especially when you're behind the 8-ball, so to speak, and you are having a state of ill health because of different stresses that you may not even recognize are affecting you in your body because of life or family or work or whatever. You didn't even recognize them, and then you fall into the state of ill health and you have symptoms and effects, and then you go looking for, because you're brainwashed so much by the pharmaceutical company, that you're looking for something to treat those effects. It all comes, how do you restore the health? You have to get the pressure off the nervous system to restore health. There's also other things you can do to help facilitate that, but it all comes back to the nervous system. The government, you can believe the government, or that's what you're going to listen to. You think they're going to tell you the right way to have health and who's in charge of your health? We're each individually responsible for our health and our health choices. Mother, father, teacher, preacher. You know, we've all been brought up, mother, father, teacher, preacher. We've had a lot of people in our lives that have taught us information. That's why I want you to show up here with an active mind to each one of these evenings, because I'm going to tell you information that maybe you've never heard before and maybe doesn't fit right now in your paradigm, but I'd like to try to sneak it in there if you believe it, if it's something that fits with you. And these are some very respectable people. There are very respectable people in each one of these professions. But you got to analyze the information for yourself. You have to step into your common sense corner and really make the right choices. Okay, let's see if this works. Wow. Nancy?
So we've all seen these commercials on TV. Every night actors are trying to sell us everything from prescription nasal sprays to depression drugs. Companies like Merck and Pfizer spend billions on these ads every year. But drug ads are different than other commercials because they have to, by law, warn viewers about potential health risks. Imagine if M&M's commercials included a choking hazard warning, or if Clorox ads warned that bleach is poisonous. The drug companies say they're giving Americans important information and helping patients take charge of their own medical destinies, which is kind of funny when you realize many of these commercials are specially designed to make you remember some things and forget others. In this ad for Vytorin, an anti-cholesterol drug, check out how the simple benefit message is repeated slowly with handy visual aids throughout the first 30 seconds.
From mom's lasagna, extra cheesy, and your pop, Petey. A healthy diet is important. When that's not enough, adding Vytorin can help. Cholesterol comes from two sources, food and family.
Now listen to the information about side effects, which comes between seconds 33 and 51. Cognitive scientists and ad makers know this is the section viewers are most likely to forget. The side effect information is also in one big chunk without pauses, which makes it harder to process.
Vytorin is not for everyone, including people with liver problems, women who are nursing, pregnant, or may become pregnant. Tell your doctor right away about unexplained muscle pain or weakness, which may be a sign of a rare but serious side effect. Certain medicines or foods may increase your risk of getting this serious side effect. Simple blood tests are needed to check for liver problems.
Diet and genetics cause high cholesterol, but if you take Vytorin, what are the risks? If you can't remember after watching this ad, you're not alone.
Marketing, advertising. Come on, change. I was having a problem. No, don't do that. Don't play again.
So we've all seen these commercials on TV.
Hold on.
Every night actors are trying
Hold on.
to sell us everything from prescription.
There we go. So pharmaceutical company, it's a business, right? All of us have businesses, and our businesses, one of our purposes of business is to make money, make a living. Pharmaceutical companies are in business, and their true goal is to make money. And this is kind of sad, because there's a lot of people that get hurt in the way, and it's about a lot of money. The pharmaceutical company is big. In the U.S., who would you think is the biggest defrauder of the federal government under the False Claims Act? It always has been the Defense Department, but no more. Hold on. Okay. Nice setup for them. If someone robbed a bank and made off with $100 million and was caught and fined only $100,000 with no punishment, even if they killed someone in the course of the robbery, what would you think of that? A nice profit of $900,000. You may think that it's insane, but it's precisely what happens in the pharmaceutical industry. If you're not outraged, you're not paying attention. Right here, this is a graph of financial penalties to the pharmaceutical industry, financial penalties from 1991 to 2010. You understand that they're trying to make new drugs all the time. But there's not a whole lot of new conditions, right? They have all these health conditions that they treat with different drugs, and so then they get patents on these drugs, right? So different pharmaceutical companies get patents. And then they try to use some of these patents for off-label stuff, but then they're trying to make more and more money, and they're charging more and more money for their medication, and they're overcharging Medicare and Medicaid, and there's a lot of fraud going on. 1991 to 1999, it was pretty consistent with around 10 billion, 20 billion, 7 billion in penalties per year, which that looks like a small number. You can't think of that as a small number. $10 billion a year?
In penalties?
In penalties. So that means you have to make a lot more money to be able to absorb $10 billion in penalties. Now you get to a point where a lot of patents and things like that start to run out. And so then they start to prescribe things for off-label, but even on-label, you guys, prescription drugs prescribed correctly, taken correctly, The side effects is the #1 cause of preventable death in the United States. #1. #1. And that's not even all the stuff that is not reported. So then look what happens in 2000, 2001,